Hello everybody and welcome to a very, very special edition of The View from the Top. I know we've had a bit of spam come in and I apologise for that. Hi there to Marianne from Southern California, from Doralina, from Caroline, Sean Mcgrath. Looking forward to seeing you today. Sean will be with us in a moment. Hi there again, Marianne. People are coming in from all over the world. We've got large numbers of people and it is so exciting because we've got a really, really special episode today. We're going to be talking about smart cost estimates. Now, what is a smart cost estimate? Well, you'll find out. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about cost estimates, what's happened to cost estimates, what the future cost estimates are, what are traditional cost estimates, and most importantly, what can we do to radically change the way that we all do smart cost estimates? Do we do car estimates? And we've got some amazing stuff. Shout out there to Vinny from UPS, who's out there in Portland. People coming in from all over the world. I saw Jenny coming in from Perth in Australia. This is just so great to see you. But you know how it all works. Everybody join the conversation, write in the comments box, tell us who you are, what you are, ask all the questions, and we'll really get into this. Hi, shout all these people coming in from Mark Bicacci to Ellen Shipley, people coming from all over the world. I just can't keep up with this. It's just too exciting. Now, the great thing is not only do you get to see the future of cost estimates, but get this, you also get credits. So if you want CPE codes, if you want your GMS or CRP codes from ERC, it's up there. If you want your HRCI or your SHRM codes, they're up there. Many thanks to our friends at Rocket Mortgage in terms of organising the HRCI and the SHRM codes, and our friends at ERC for the GMS and the CRP codes. I'll leave that up for another minute. If you want your codes, then just make a note of them, screenshot this page, or just get your camera out and take a quick photo as it goes across. I won't leave that up there for more than another minute. One of the things we try and do every week, of course, is to also give you just a little bit of breaking news, what's been going on. I mean, as far as we're concerned, the breaking news is, of course, the launch of smart cost estimates. But there's been other breaking news as well. A lot of people have moved jobs during the last week, have been promoted. So let's quickly have a quick look at the breaking news from around this fabulous world of global mobility. So that's all our breaking news. As I said, we're going to be talking, in some depth on smart cost estimates in a moment. Ellen Shipley, she said, by the way, I've joined Slalom as the head of mobility. Many congratulations, Ellen, and we'll make sure we'll give you a shout out on the show next week too. The other thing I'd say, you probably noticed in that Benivo is hiring. We're going on a big time hiring spree at the moment. We are looking for a head of HR, preferably somebody with mobility experience. We're looking for client development managers. We're looking for client success managers. We're looking for finance and operations people, and also UX writers. So if any of those fit your description or somebody you know, then do reach out to them and let's have a conversation. Anyway, we're going to move on, and we're going to move on to our main part of the show, and I'm just so excited about that. So we've got some special guests. We've got Sean Mcgrath from Vialto. We've got Nitsan Udan and Pankaj Bhatia from here at Benivo. So let's just bring them on stage and have a real discussion about, well, smart cost estimates. Hi, everybody. Hi, Pankaj. Hi, Nitsan. Hi, Sean. Great to have you all on the show. How are you all doing?
Great. Good to be here, Brian.
Great.
Sean, it's great to see you. Now, tell me, Sean, you've not been on the show before. Nitsan and Pankaj have, and you're with Vialto, formerly, of course, known as PwC or PwC Global Mobility, now known as Vialto Partners. But Sean, just tell me a little bit about yourself. Where in the world are you, and a bit about your background?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Great to be here. Thanks again for having me. So Sean Mcgrath, I am a client service partner with Vialto Partners. I'm based in the Stamford, Connecticut area. And previously I spent 24 years with PwC. And my main focus is helping clients leverage mobility technology. And I am leading our global compensation and payroll service line for the US within Vialto. And I also lead a number of our technology alliances, like this alliance with Benivo.
Okay, well, I mean, it's just great to have you on the show. Now, Sean, the last time we had somebody from Vialto on the show was Peter Clark, just before, or when the announcement had been made, but before actually the deal had completed. He was talking about it. You've done it. You've broken the mold. Congratulations. So excited for you guys. What's it like? I mean, you're not in the Big Four anymore. You're not an audit firm. It's a completely different world. What's it like being at Vialto, a standalone? I can't really call you a Big Four, but you are a Big Four in terms of tax. But you know what I mean. What's it like being out free of all the other regulations that you had to live by?
It's been amazing. We're 2.5 months into this journey as Vialto Partners, but it's been truly amazing. The market response has been phenomenal. Being a freestanding global organization that is unencumbered by the independence restrictions and just the ability to deliver a true end-to-end experience for our clients in many areas that we previously would have been precluded. It's just so exciting, and especially as a technology professional. I spent the majority of my career focused on what we couldn't do for clients. And now I'm focused on how we can do more for clients. And this is just a great example of something that would have been very difficult to do in our past.
Yeah, I mean, I know from our side, trying to do deals with sometimes, audit firms can get tricky because of all the regulations and restrictions that they understandably suffer. But anyway, congratulations to I know there's hundreds of people from Vialto in the audience who are going to watch us on Catch Up. Anybody out there from Vialto, big shout out to you all, and many, many congratulations. So moving on, Pankaj, okay, you've been on the show before, but for the people who don't know you, tell us a bit about yourself and your background, because you've got a bit of a tax background too, haven't you?
Sure, and thanks, Brian. It's always a pleasure being on here. So like you said, yeah, actually, I do come with a tax background. In fact, I'm a qualified accountant with CPA in the US. Started my career with I was there in one of the Big Fours for around 5.5 years, post which I moved to industry, was in the industry for around 20 plus years, having worked for organizations like Accenture, Genpact, which was formerly GE Capital, Honeywell, and British American Tobacco. So yeah, last 20 years being on the other side, being with the industry, knowing the ins and outs of the mobility field there.
Okay, and we're getting people coming in from all over the world. Shout out to Bethany also on holiday in Morzine. I don't even know where Morzine is, but it sounds fabulous. I'm showing my complete ignorance there. I didn't think I'd get failed on knowing a location. No doubt Beth will tell us as we go forward. Anyway, moving on. Cost estimates. I mean, that's what we're here to talk about. So let's get everything in context, a bit of background on cost estimates. I mean, how long have they been around? How long have companies been doing? I mean, Sean, what's the history of cost estimates? When did people start doing these things?
Yeah, and it's a great question. And, it's something that I think goes back multiple decades, right? With some of the oil and gas companies first getting into looking at this and trying to project costs. Obviously at that time, probably in the 60s, very manual. right? But as we progressed into the 80s, started to become a bit more tech-enabled, if you could call it that, with basic spreadsheet approaches. I know PwC was kind of leading at that time, just in creating these estimates on the office computer. That was the technology at the time, and very much progressed in the the late 80s and 90s into more kind of system-driven technology solutions that have evolved to where we are today. So really, I would say over the last probably 20 to 25 years, has really become more tech-enabled, with a number of organizations having system solutions to help try and simplify the process.
Yeah, I mean, I know the sort of the start of the cost estimate is lost a little bit in the history of time. I'm sure that many years ago people were doing estimates of costs, but what gets complicated, of course, is when you have things like double tax and hypothetical tax and home and host country tax and all those sorts of adjustments. And like you, I've heard the story. This all started out in Texas in the 50s, and I think there's different firms have got different stories. I remember when I was at EY being told that actually it had been started by Arthur Young, as then was one of the predecessor firms back in the 50s, was asked to do a tax equalization calculation for some big oil company. I think PwC was doing the same. Who knows who was first, but somewhere in the line it seems to have started in Texas with oil companies. And I suspect everybody, as you said, were doing it with their pens and papers, and probably in those days actually they didn't even have calculators, so they're probably doing it with long division or stuff like that, or using other slide rules or whatever they were using back in the day. But so it's gone a huge long way from a very, very manual process to to much more tech enabled, and then, as we'll show you all, of course, to a much smarter process that we've got now. But I suppose the next question that comes up is, why do companies do it? And I'll ask you that, Nitsan. Why are cost estimates important? Why do companies actually want to do them?
That's obvious, right? When you have three tax specialists on a call, you'll ask the one who is
I'll
not
take it back then. Okay, so
but
delete question.
I'll take that.
Okay, Pankaj, you're being warned. The question's coming to you next, but Nitsan, you kick off.
Yeah, so cost estimates are important for a number of reasons, right? It's like every budget approval that we need to do. We need to set the expectations. We need to allocate the budget. We need to compare alternatives, right? Because there are, it can be impacting the length of the assignment, the kind of benefits associated, the policy, the project. For many organizations, getting cost estimate is as important as winning a client, because when they bid on a project, part of that cost that goes to the client is the cost of the relocation. And if they miss a bit on the cost estimate, it immediately impacts the profitability of the business, right? So those are significant places where cost estimate play a role. But these are not the only ones.
Yeah, and I think Pankaj, probably as we all know, but maybe just talk us through it a bit. I mean, expats are expensive, aren't they? Especially those that are sort of tax equalized, they've got gross ups. So maybe that's part of the reason. I mean, how expensive is typically an expat compared to, somebody staying at home?
It could vary significantly.
How it works up, yeah.
Right. So it could vary significantly. In fact, we've seen some instances where the cost of deployment could be like maybe 2 times or 3 times the compensation of those highly paid expats, right? And especially when we are talking about the complexity of multiple countries, we are talking about other combinations around the bonus, the variable pays, etc., etc. That kind of makes a huge difference. And to the point that you're making, Brian, when you compare that with a local employee, that may be again, something which could be a key decision, whether you want to actually look at deploying an expat or you actually, have someone locally hired. So I think that's one of the very key data which is actually used. One other point, just kind of taking up from what Nitsan was mentioning, we've had a couple of clients who actually want to get to a level around 97, 98% level of accuracy, because they're actually submitting bids And when they are submitting bids, they want to get that cost as accurate as possible. You can't say that we will be conservative and ultimately you jack up the cost quite a lot and you out yourself with your competitors, etc. Right? So that's the reason it's very, very important to get all of that right. Otherwise, it's a question of potentially losing the business.
And so I suppose the obvious question is, what do companies do now? I mean, and maybe Sean, I mean, you know, what is it that companies tend to do today with their cost estimates?
Yeah, no, I think depending on where you are in the evolution, it may be that you're not doing them. It may be that you're leveraging a relocation provider to prepare them. We know some clients, you know, they've built their own internal models just based on historical data. And, you know, to Pankash's point, they might say, well, okay, it's 2 to 3 times cost compensation, and they might have refined that depending on the country combinations. Some clients are leveraging technology to prepare those cost estimates. So I think it really runs the gambit depending on where they are in their evolution, and might even be a dependency on the size of their program.
Yeah, so I suppose there's different solutions out there at the moment. Some companies do nothing or just do it through spreadsheets. Some companies will use their tax provider to do a return. Some companies will use their RMC to use the return, which may or may not have, you know, tax logic within it, but hopefully it does. And some people will use a technology provider. So there's and some people will use their data provider. So people are using different solutions out there at the moment. But I suppose that raises the question of, why did we see the need, or what is a smart cost estimate? And that's what we're going to get into. Before we do, Nitzan, maybe just ask you this question. What are the challenges with a traditional cost estimate? I mean, you know, if you look at the way people do it at the moment, let's say they're using, for sake of argument, an RMC, and they're sending off to the RMC to get a cost estimate. What are the challenges with that?
Yeah, so I think you know, as Sean said, there are 3 main sources companies were using for cost estimate, whether it's a vendor such as their RMC, whether it's a tool, or going on to the big 4, and each of them has disadvantages and challenges, right? So some of them are not instant, so they take time. It can take a few days until we get that done, because another person needs to run it for me on another tool. So now that sounds okay, right? Oh, we can only wait 2 days. Now I got it back. Oh, I want to change something. Again, I need to wait. And again, it's coming back. And every such cycle and every such change is creating manual work. Manual work means additional cost. It ends up to be expensive. And there is a limit on the number of changes I can do, because otherwise there's additional fee that apply. So I can't run as many cost estimates.
So the first point there is traditional cost estimates are slow. That you send it off to your provider. I appreciate there's exceptions to every rule. There are certainly instant solutions out there. But if you're going the traditional RMC route, it's quite often slow. You send it off, maybe even with a big 4 firm, you send it off. It takes a couple of days to come back. Then you've got to query it. Okay, so that's point 1. The second point is you said it's expensive as well, because there's maybe you're allowed a couple of iterations, or there's a fee for doing it. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so there's cost associated with that, because when a person needs to run it, even if they run it on a tool, there is a person there on the other hand, and someone needs to pay their cost, and someone needs to pay their training, and someone needs to pay their holiday. It's the client. So there are just a lot of additional layers that result with additional costs. So that's one area of a challenge. Another area of a challenge is the lack of accuracy. So there are tools that run those cost estimates, but normally they are not based on the quality of the tax calculation that you get from Vialto Partners. They are based on lower quality of estimation. And we've done the research on the market. It's the difference in the accuracy of the tax when you look at the Vialto Partners calculations to the existing tools on the market is 100% on the cost. It's double, and it's not always double up, because if that was easy, we'll just cut it. Sometimes it's above, sometimes it's below, but it's double. The difference, and tax is a significant portion of the cost. So the accuracy is the second problem. The third problem, that there are some tools that are not fully integrated, meaning I need to enter the same information over and over, employee name, policy, the home location. I get the output, now I need to enter it to another tool. We've heard so many of our change makers, and that's a great opportunity also to say thank you to the Benivo change makers for all their support from the idea. They were the one who told us, hey, we want that to be on the Benivo platform, to taking us step by step and sharing with us their needs and giving feedbacks on the early prototype to help build that. So a big thank you to them in that journey. And that the other area of challenge that applicable to all existing traditional solutions is the fact that it doesn't use enough actual data. Now, most can compare cost, estimate to actual, but it doesn't happen in real time, and it's a complete nightmare to get the actual cost into a single place. And every mobility manager I ever spoke with raised that as a challenge. Getting the actual cost, being able to compare it to the estimate in real time, it just doesn't happen.
Okay, so what we're saying, I mean, just to sum it up in a couple of words, is that the existing ones are slow, they're cumbersome, they're expensive, and they're inaccurate. And I think actually one of our change makers and a great friend of the show, Vinny Valverde, actually summed it up. I've just been looking at the comments, and maybe we can just pull those comments up in order. What's Vinny said is, all we want is, and let's go for them. Number one, accurate tax cost estimates. Okay. Number two, a quick turnaround. Number three, a free number of revisions. And number four, less expensive. Well, Vinny, I think it's probably about time, five, something that we, the business, can trust. Okay, so Vinny, I think you're going to like this, because we're going to show you this. And just to go through this, what we're going to show you now does give you not just a quick turnaround, it gives you an instant turnaround. You can also get instant approvals within the system. What we're going to show you is very accurate, has got Vialto's tax logic, and has got artificial intelligence to make it even better. And you asked for it to be less expensive. What we're going to show you is, in fact, not less expensive, it's free. Completely 100% free to any Benivo client. So there's no cost, it's included. There's no extra license fee, it's included absolutely in the standard arrangement. If you are a Benivo client, we will be reaching out to you to tell you all about it to make sure you're using it. If you're not a Benivo client, then contact us and we'll show you a demo and you can understand it. So all those things are coming through. We actually asked people, we did a poll and we said, what do you find most frustrating about preparing cost estimates? And we gave the choices: too time consuming, too expensive, too inaccurate, and all of the above. And what the people taking part in the poll said, 23% said too time consuming, 13% too expensive, 12% said too inaccurate, and a whopping 53% said all of the above. So in fact, they're echoing what Vinny just said in the comments. So out there in the audience, we've got loads more that we can talk about. Actually, I'll just show one other survey and then we'll get into actually showing you. We also asked in a poll, what would you most like to transform? How would you most like to transform cost estimates? And we said, do you want more accurate results? Do you want instant cost estimates? Do you want pre-populated fields? Or do you want it available at no cost? And what the audience said was 27% said more accurate results, 50% said they wanted instant, only 3% said they wanted pre-populated, but trust me, you will want pre-populated, and 20% said available at no cost. Now, out there in the audience, let me ask you the question, do you want to see it? Okay, shall we go live and show you a live demo? Hit the like button, hit the heart button, hit the applause button if you'd like to see a demo. And Nitsan, Mark Groomer, I'm so excited for today. So Nitsan, are you in a position to show us a demo now?
Absolutely. A second before we get to the demo, I just want to say it's a
Okay, I think
and
as we
internally
said
to
that,
share it with you for months. And I just want to say one thank you, huge thank you to Vialto Partners, who've been phenomenal partner in the process of making this and building it, and really all the conceptions that were in the industry before, they were changing them, breaking them, bringing innovation. Absolutely, we love working with them and appreciate that partnership. Sean and the team, lots of people who are involved in that. And also a thank you to the Benivo team, who not only built a smart cost estimate, but in a record-breaking time, putting tons of work and iterations and creativity to solve challenges we didn't even think we will come across. And here we are to show that. So let's share the screen and let's get into the smart cost estimate.
Okay, let's do that. I must say, Nitzan, as you started talking then, I don't know if it was just me, but the screen froze and I thought, oh my God, just as I said, we're going to go live, you froze. And I don't know if it was just me or everybody got that in the audience, but my heart sank at that point. So hopefully that was a blip that's gone. So Nitzan, okay, we've got your screen here and we can see a map of the world. So tell us a little bit about the cost estimate and how it all comes together.
Absolutely. So what we are seeing now is the Benivo platform for the mobility team. And what we can see there is that the cost estimate is now, I'm going to run one in a second, I promise, but it's part of a bigger thing. It's part of our end-to-end solution that take into place three core components: the solutions for the global mobility managers to do their daily work, to automate, to to streamline workflow. Everything a global mobility needs to do for their work is here. It's to manage the vendors, anything from authorizing all the vendors in one click, to managing their SLAs, to tracking their performance, and even making payment to them. So they submit their invoices, and I'll explain in a second why it's so important. On the Benivo platform, we process that. We can even subcontract that on behalf of the client. So proper vendor management that we are doing. And the third area is the employee and the employee experience, creating a single platform for the employees where they access anything from payments to information about their locations, to reviews, to star rating, to status delivery with their. You've seen that all before, but what I wanted to highlight is having
so
all
tell me about the screen we've got up now. So this is a screen where I can
on
see
a single place. Yes, having it all on a single place.
Assignment. Yeah. So tell us about this.
That's how we're gonna run a cost estimate. I'm just gonna wrap up and say having it all on a single place unlock the power of data. And that allows us to do predictive analytics, to use real-time data based on costs in order the real cost to make our future cost estimates more accurate. And I'll show how that works. But let's start by running a cost estimate. So I can see here my dashboard of cost estimate.
So hang on. So Nitzan, so I'm building the tension here. So we're going live now with a real cost estimate. Okay.
Absolutely.
So we got
Vinny asked for that.
I've made it as big as I can so people can, we've gone behind the screen now. So I'm seeing a bunch of employee names, policy types, assignments. So tell us all about this.
Yeah, so Vinny asked for that to be instant. Let's do it instantly. I can run as many what if scenarios as I want. I can run as many cost estimates as I want. I think that was the second ask, right? Unlimited. So let's run one. I want it to be fully integrated because we don't want to enter all the same information over and over again. So I can just try to type the employee name or their ID, and everything will get pre-populated for me. So you can see immediately it already knows that it's an assignment from Germany to the UK, and the dates are already in the system because that record already existed. We got it from the HCM, Workday, or SuccessFactors, any of them, or from a manual input that was available before. But the idea is never enter the same information more than once.
Okay, so we've got a dummy employee here. Obviously, we're showing dummy data. So this is a dummy employee called Golf Benivo. I was in my mind, I was trying to work out why somebody chose, one of our people backstage chose the name Golf Benivo, but I'm guessing because it's somebody coming from Germany, so maybe they were thinking Volkswagen Golf or something. But But anyway, so our dummy employee is Mr. Golf Benivo or Mrs. Golf Benivo.
And what I'm doing now is I can enter here any information that maybe we didn't have before. So I'm going to enter it now and it will be saved, such as the annual salary, and I chose the type of policy. That's it. I'm finished with the demographics. I'm now going into costs. And in cost, we have three.
So again, let me just highlight this with the audience. So what is so clever here is you don't have to put in the countries the person is moving to. Once it knows who the individual is, the system already knows where they're moving. So that's already in there, and they know the type of policy. So what you then do is you're just putting in a bit of salary information that maybe you don't know. So an awful lot of it is pre-populated. So that of itself saves you, the mobility manager, a lot of time.
So now we're going to look at the costs, and the costs are coming from a few sources and three layers of cost. The base layer is the data that come from external provider, and we support all three: ECA, Mercer, Airing, whichever data you want to work with, whichever data you've purchased, we support that, and we will put that as the base layer, as the one at the bottom, because on top of that we want to create higher accuracy, which we can do on layer 2, which is the actual data, because all the receipts, all the spends on the platform, and the corporate already has experience from the past. We can override that with real-time data, such as data on the shipping. We all know that shipping prices have changed daily and dramatically. So we can use real cost, accurate from recent cases, and even live quotes in order to override the baseline and dramatically improve the accuracy. That's the second layer. I'll talk about the top layer in a second. This is fully customizable. Every corporate can define how many cost items they want to control it or not. In this example, we created the ability to choose travel type. So I'm going to choose premium economy. And I can also select here the standard for my temp housing cost, and I choose premium here as that. Each of those selections automatically applicable to the relevant cost that was pre-selected that was pre-populated based on the data we hold. I'm going to click now next, and that will take me into the next screen. So I talked before about the two layers of data, one coming from external data providers, one is coming from the real data. Now I'm able to override it. So that's the top layer, right? And let's say for this specific cost estimate, I want to enter specific data. I'm going to see here, and let's say my lease cancellation fees, it's not going to be £2,000. I'm going to approve an exception of 3,000. And if I want now to move forward, I cannot move forward without giving a reason. I need to explain why I decided to override this data. And I'm going to say it's a COVID-19 adjustment. And the reason we do that, in order to automatically generate exception reports with the ability to analyze the reasons for exceptions and ideally over time reduce exceptions. So we can monitor that in all the time, see why we're having exceptions, what the source, who is the approver, all of that automated as part of the process. All right, I'm going to select it here. In terms of the sourcing, I can choose whether it's a home cost or a host cost. I can say who we want to attribute to that. There is a lot of flexibility. I can control here all the demographic fields and see which cost we want to apply between the home and host country and the hypothetical cost. I'm not going to get into all of them now. But what I want to do next is, now that I have all my costs here, I'm going to click on this button, and now the magic will happen. Everything will go through the API to Vialto Partner, and instantly we are going to get our cost estimate back within seconds.
So here we're seeing it is calculating. The estimate is almost there. It's on its way. And we've had a question come in from Vinny. He said, is this only for temporary assignment? And it's there. Actually, I'll answer Vinny's question in a moment. But look at how quick was that? Okay, I'll take that question from Vinny in a moment, actually. So but so look how quick that was. Rather than wait 2 days, 3 days, okay, you've got your cost estimate there. That probably took whatever 20 seconds or so to go from the Benivo platform once you hit the submit button through to Vialto and come back through that API that we've got. As I said, maybe 20 seconds, so as near to instant as you could imagine. And so there is a lot of magic there. Before we get into the numbers here, I will actually bring Sean in and just talk a little bit about the tax and the tax engine. I'll start actually with that question from Vinny actually. So Vinny said, let's just pull that question up. Vinny said, here we go. Is this only for temporary assignments, short-term and long-term, or could it be used for permanent relocations and or inter-country domestic relocations? What about cross-border / inter-country commuter and rotators? So Sean, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Brian. And absolutely, it is used for much more than just your traditional long and short-term moves. It does support permanent transfers, various cross-border moves, rotators, et cetera. So it's a very robust engine. And as you can see here as part of the results, it's not only is it coming up with the home and the host actual tax costs, but it's coming up with the social tax cost if applicable. It's coming up with hypothetical tax costs, and it's factoring in a variety of country positions and special regimes where appropriate. So it's a really robust calculation. But I think the key is that you're getting the balance of the simplicity, the pre-filled inputs, but still the robustness and richness of the result.
Okay, and we're not going to go, we've got loads of questions coming in. I should say at this point, we're going to do a second show next week when we're going to do a real deep dive. And I promise you, we're going to get into all the questions that everybody has got out there. I see a couple coming through. We'll cover them all off next week. But what we do want to do is carry on with the demo so that we don't go off on tangents. By the way, if anybody wants to have a more personal demonstration, then you can either have a one-to-one with our team, or indeed we've got some upcoming corporate only demos, and the link is there. Sean, just one other question for you before we go back to us. Tell us a bit about the Vialto, the XPWC tax engine that you've got in there, because I know that it is, one of the best, maybe the best in the industry. Let's say it's the best, but I'm sure all the big four firms have got very, very good tax engines. But just tell us a bit about the tax engine. How often it's updated. Just give us a feel for it.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. So, when we redeveloped the engine, we focused on 3 areas: accuracy, performance, and the ability to connect to different platforms. And from a accuracy or a tax position maintenance standpoint, we have a dedicated team. They go through annual review processes for each of the countries. We support over 100 countries, and any tax changes that happen throughout the year, the team is focused on implementing those changes as and when they occur as well. So we have not only kind of the annual process to do an in-depth review, but we're monitoring throughout the year for changes so they can be incorporated into the engine.
Cool. So that's fascinating. And Pankaj, from your experience, how's this comparing with other ones that you've seen out there when you're on the corporate side?
No, I think it's very, very robust. Like you mentioned, Brian, I think, we kind of looked at different options. We looked at the data service providers, we looked at RMC, we looked at the big fours, etc. as well. And in terms of the accuracy, in terms of the robustness, in terms of the updates, etc. coming in, I think certainly, Vialto Partners is right at the top. Okay,
so Nitsan, let's go back to the demo. So we showed how instantly you get a tax cost estimate. Tell us a bit about this tax cost. I saw you scrolling up and down, but people are probably listening to the conversation. So scroll up and down a bit. Tell us a bit about the tax cost estimate, and tell us now about the next steps.
Yeah, so we can see here the total cost. We can see the cost associated with the tax, ongoing assignment, the breakdown by the years, all of the information here, and especially if you want additional information on each of the cost components. That's all great. We'll show plenty of dashboards and reports also next week. What I want to talk about is what's next. Because often when we're going to have the cost estimate, we need to send it to someone for approval. So let's just do it on the platform with 2 clicks. And I can choose who is the approver. I'm going to send it to myself. I know it's funny, but that's how it's going to appear. And I'll say, as per your request, I'm going to send it for approval. And I'm going to click it. And that's it. Now what's happening is that we are not sending it by email. A lot of solutions, a lot of things on our industry are sending those cost estimate by email, and that's create a data security risk. We are sending a secure link that is taking the approver without knowing anything about Benivo, without knowing anything about those tools, because that's going to be often people not related to mobility, into a secure link that they can access the information there. And that gives us a number of advantages.
So what's happening at the moment? So let me just drill down on that, make sure I understand it. Is if you're sending a request with some data to maybe your RMC or someone to get the cost estimate, you wait a couple of days to come back. It comes back by email, maybe as an attachment. So basically what you've done is you've put out into a fairly insecure environment maybe the total comp package of a very senior person who is being moved around the world. So it's quite an insecure way. So what we're having here is it doesn't leave the system. There's no emails, and it's completely secure.
And in addition, it also sends. We now send the email, the same email with attachment we got from our provider. We need to forward it now internally for approval. These are all non-secure ways of doing that, but also not leaving room for mistakes. And I don't know about you, I make mistakes. And sometimes I'm sending something and I wish I haven't sent it.
Oh, the number of times I've hit the reply to all button when I only meant to hit the reply button. And I've said something about one of the people in the it's my nightmare that you hit or you forward something and there's a drop down menu of people in your company and predictive text comes in, and instead of going to John Smith, it goes to Jane Smith or something, and you've sent the email to the wrong person. It's one of the nightmares of the current era. I mean, I think somebody once said to err is human, but if you really want to foul up big time, you need a computer.
Which is why we created the recall option. I can just recall this submission and cancel it. And because it wasn't by email, it's a secure link. Even if some time passed, I can still recall that and I can still undo what I didn't want to do. So that's
that's amazing. So if I've sent if I sent a request for approval to somebody and by mistake I've sent to the wrong person, I can just recall it and they never get to see it.
Absolutely. And I can, of course, download it as PDF and spreadsheets and all of that. I didn't want to get into that now. But let's now look. Till now, I was at the global mobility point of view. And I know they're going to be asked questions of that. Can we give access to the business to run a more simplified version of that? And the answer is absolutely yes, and unlimited. I can see now that I received. Now I'm the approver, right? So I'm moving out from being the person who received the email who sent it for approval to the approver. I can see I got a notification that there is a cost estimate for me to approve. I'm going to open it. And this should open for me that secure link, even if I'm not a member of Benivo, anyone in the organization. I get that. I can see that cost estimate. I can go into the details and I can send my comments and my question. I can reject that request or I can approve it. And I'm going to ask to approve it now and please prioritize it. And we're done. And next, I'm going to log in now. I'm done as the approver. I finished my role. I'm going to go back now to be the global mobility manager who is looking at my cost estimate. I probably going to need to log in again. And there where I'll be able to see the status of each cost estimate and see when it got approved and basically that approval. All right. Here I'm going to quickly log in. I want to spend now as we don't have a lot of time left, and we will do a deep dive next week, but I want to show one report, one dashboard that talks about this data, because we've seen the value of running a cost estimate when it's fully integrated with an instant, when I can run as many as I want, unlimited. But what really excites me is what makes it the smart, not just the easy to use, is the data. It's being able to look into the
So let's pull that up there.
Because all the costs are on a single platform, all the cost of the vendors, of payroll, of the employee expense reimbursement already sits on the platform. It means that in real time, I can see this comparison of between estimated cost to actual cost. And that gives us a number of strong advantages, right? So you can see here, for example, each of the cost estimate, what was the estimate, what is the actual cost, and we don't need to wait. First, it's easy and it's instant. Second, I don't need to wait for the end of the assignment to look at that, because what happens often is at the end of the assignment, we get a bill, it's much higher than the estimate, and we need to start to give excuses. We all hate to be doing that, and it's an uncomfortable place to be. With this smart cost estimate, we have real-time alerts that constantly check the thresholds between the actual costs that are coming from the quotes and the bids of the vendors and the other sources of cost to the estimate, and are able to identify in real time that we are starting to reach a threshold. So we don't need to wait to the end of the assignment or the end of the move in order to explain. We can be proactive and go to the business and work with them on solutions in real time, whether they will approve maybe the additional cost, and at least they will know to account for that, and there's no like a big bill surprise at the end that we might need to restate our financial statements. That's something that happened, right, when we got that wrong, to being able to maybe still change a few things in the assignment. So all of that data and threshold, and I'll show a lot more about it next week, are tools that are not available anywhere, but now the smart cost estimate bring them to life and makes the role of mobility a lot more strategic in the organization. I can do a drill down by type of cost, whether it's temporary living or household good, and see where the variation from the estimates. And using that real data, we continue to improve those cost estimates. There are dedicated data scientists by Benivo that work with each of the corporates to make sure the accuracy of the cost estimates is getting improved and improved, and we can see over time by country in any way we want to analyze this. This is really the revolution of data, and I'm super excited about that.
And this is what makes it smart. I mean, we've called it smart cost estimates, but that's what's made it smart, or one of the things that's made it smart is, I know it's pre-populated, but what's really, really clever is we can use it for predictive analytics, and we can use it to get much more accurate results. So we're going to go into it next week in a lot more detail. We have had some questions that have come in. I can't promise we're going to get to every question today, but we'll try and do what we can. And then all the others, I promise you, we will pick up on next week when we do the deep dive. But I'd be very interested if I could just ask the audience, what you think of what you've seen so far. We're very excited. We think this is something that is really radical. We'd love, your general sort of, hopefully thumbs up or comments on it. But let me just take a couple of specific ones. And let's just start with this one here. And this is for you, Sean. How does it incorporate tax rates for the US where the tax rates differ from state to state, or for any other country where the rate is dynamic?
Yeah, so within the API engine, all of the country rates, the tax deductions, credits, they're all built into the platform. They're maintained by a dedicated team. So not only for the countries that we support, but also for the states that are supported from the US. So all of those would be incorporated into the calculation. And there are different override options. Nitzan demonstrated some of them that can be fed into the calculation platform as well.
Right, got it. Okay. And another question that's come in. Let me just find that here. So I've just lost the question. Here we go. Capta said, yes, please. I'm not sure what yes, please refers to, but I think it probably means come back to the question. Here's one from Jack Jampel from Striker. Is this offered free of charge for Vialto clients as well? So Nitzan, I'll let you take that.
Yeah, so the cost estimate, the tool as we've seen it, is included. If you would like a Vialto partner, a tax expert to go and customize a specific cost estimate to a specific need, not using that Benivo tool, that obviously will be a fee. But other than that, just running the cost estimate as a Benivo client is included, yes.
Yeah, but I think actually, I think Jack was making a different point. I think what Jack was saying is, if you're not a client of Benivo, but you're a client of Vialto for your tax returns, can you just access it through Vialto? And the answer is that I think is no, that this is for Benivo clients, which is using the Vialto engine, but clearly the two interrelate. So Nitzan, if you just want to talk to that aspect of it.
Yeah, so I think that's the only requirement to get to the smart cost estimate, to work with Benivo. We don't know of a way to deliver that without working with us. So
absolutely. And to put it in context, the entire cost of a Benivo license is probably less than what you're paying for one tax cost estimate with many providers. We did actually ask people what they pay for tax cost estimates. I mean, what's your view? Actually, I've got three experts in here. What do we think the market rate is for a cost estimate at the moment?
I think it depends on the approach. I would say probably, if it's more of a technology-driven approach, it's probably $300 to $500 in most cases. If it's involving a tax professional and a more complex, it's probably north of $500.
Okay, and so actually, Vinny just asked that. Yeah, so we've just dealt with that. Would Vialto clients have access to the tool free of charge? And the answer is no, you have to be a Benivo client. But again, the cost of being a Benivo client is probably about the same as doing just one cost estimate, depending on the size of your program. So it basically makes the
Not sure. Did we lose Brian?
I'm still here. I think Brian is frozen, right?
Yep, I think so.
Well, we got him on another screen.
Hi, I'm going to let you guys continue. Something's happened to my system, I'm afraid. So hopefully you guys can continue this.
Yep, we can hear you now, Brian. Go ahead.
So I think just to cover that point for Vinny, using Benivo, that doesn't just replace the need to pay for cost estimate. It replaces the need to pay for a lot of other components, expense reimbursement, and reduces the cost of vendor management, and reduces the cost in many places. But and of course include all the management system and all the system of records, everything on a single platform. That's the real value there. And yes, we can work with RMCs, and we can give access to RMCs to our platform. It's called an integrated RMCs, that those are RMCs who are using our solution. This is not they purchase that, it's per client. So the corporate is choosing Benivo and granting access to Benivo to their RMC. That's how it works in terms of answering that question.
Okay, so apologies for that. I've got no idea what happened. That's the problem with doing a live broadcast, is things just happen to. So I see some of these comments. Brian is frozen in time, and then I came back in in stereo, so not sure. Another question here, actually, I'll give this one to you, Sean, from Jeff. Does this tool anticipate local home purchase transfer tax in specific locations? That's a very, very deep down question.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I fully understand the question. If the question is in relation to specific regimes that have preferential tax treatment on housing, whether it's employer paid versus the individual making the payments, like Japan as an example, then the answer is yes. I'm not sure if that's fully getting to the question, but the engine does support that example that I just outlined.
Okay, and another question, I'll ask this one to you, Nitsan. This is from Karina. If the cost estimate is part of an assignment checklist, does the system automatically send for approval requests to the respective stakeholders or approvers?
Yeah, so as I showed, I can run a cost estimate, see the result, and then decide if I want to add one more click that will send it to the stakeholder for approval. What happens after the approval, it what makes it even more exciting. In one more click, I can generate the assignment letter because all the information is already on the platform. I don't need to enter that information again. And in another click, and that will automatically go for digital signature by all the relevant approvers. And with another click, I authorize all the vendors. And all the information is already there. I don't need to pre-populate that. So that's taking really automation to the next level by putting it as an end-to-end single platform.
And actually that comes to the next question, which I think you've partly answered. I'm afraid that's going to be our last question for today. This is from Erin. She says, curious how you get the cost estimates for household goods shipping. Does that come from the previously uploaded rates from your supplier partners, or is it from an average of costs across a wide range of suppliers depending on volume, etc.?
So the sources of data, as I mentioned, are three sources. This is some of that data will come, and we work with each corporate on the way they want to structure that. That's why we give that flexibility. But one source is external providers such as ECA, Mercer, and AirInc, and we can use the data that comes from them. We also have the data of actual HAG shipping, right? So not just recent as they happen, as well as instant quote, to answer your question there, that are happening now, and we can run those quotes to improve the accuracy. So the level of accuracy that we are talking here in terms of the shipping is the highest that is possible, and that's the value of this layered model of which data to use. But each corporate can define what they want to use and what is that, how they want to structure that.
Okay, and we are pretty much out of time. There's one comment here. The assignment letter could be different for every client. How would this accommodate the letter generation? Just to answer that very quickly, as part of setup, it is set up with your policy. So you're not having some standard policy. This is all bespoke to you. And another point we didn't mention, actually, this will also look like your platform as well. This is all logoed up to look like your company. We just showed you the demo platform. There are loads more questions. We are unfortunately out of time. But the good news is, first of all, we are back next week and we're going to do a real deep dive and we're going to take all these questions and indeed many more next week. So please mark your calendars to join us this time next week. Also, we are doing live demos during the next couple of weeks, and you can sign up for those. If you just go to the benivo.com website, you'll find it there. You can just sign up for them. And indeed, if you want a one-to-one demo, obviously, if you're corporate, then again, you can schedule that with us if you just go onto your website. It's been so exciting, and I'm just full of gratitude and praise for everybody on the Benivo team and on the Vialto team who've worked so tirelessly for months on this. I did a few teasers over the last few weeks saying it was coming, and I so wanted to sort of let the rabbit out the bag, the cat out the bag, but I held back to have all the excitement for today. So it has been super, super exciting. It's been a pretty traumatic show in terms of things freezing and all that sort of stuff, and a bit of spam at the beginning, but hopefully you've all enjoyed it. And one last thing, by the way, I just want to remind people, Benivo is hiring big time at the moment. So if you want to be an HR director, a client development manager, a client success manager, if you want to be a finance operations or even a UX writer with us here at Benivo, then do reach out, because we're on a bit of a hiring spree at the moment. So from us, from Nitsan, from Pankaj, from me at Benivo Partners, and from Sean Mcgrath at Vialto Partners, it's been great having the opportunity to talk to you all today. Many thanks. Take care, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you all next week. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.